game of the week out west. It is the last hope for the Pac-12. Number 7 USC, 2.5 point favorites on the road in the Rose Bowl against number 16 UCLA. This is a Saturday night game, Fox, 7 p.m. kick here in God's time zone. If you want to tune in, USC is the only chance for the Pac-12 to get a member into the college football playoff. Oregon dropped the ball at home last week against Washington, eliminating them from the discussion. USC's defense has been very suspect. As we've gotten farther into the season, the better teams that they play, they give up a lot of yards, a lot of points, and UCLA seems primed to be able to take advantage of this. I do really wonder if on the road, it's supposed to be a sold out stadium, but whatever. I'll let you head to Twitter on why that's not actually the case. Uh, USC, I think they've got the horses on offense to beat UCLA outright. But at the same time, we've seen when defenses, Utah, for instance, when they couldn't stop Dorian Thompson Robinson on the ground or in the air, made for a brutal night in the Rose Bowl. So my gut is that USC has more to play for, that Lincoln Riley will find a way to have those guys riled up. I'll take USC by a field goal in a rivalry game, but this would not shock me if the Bruins win outright.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think I'm going to take USC minus the 2.5 as well. This is going to be a lot of points scored, a big shootout situation out west. Man, I wish UCLA wouldn't have slipped up last week, man. Like
Yep.
this had all the makings of a huge rivalry game and a huge spot. Game day probably would have been there. Just what could have been if UCLA doesn't slip up last week to the fighting Jed Fishes. But I digress because this is still going to be a very entertaining football game. UCLA is out of the playoff positioning, and this is their playoff game, right? Like this is their rivalry game. They want to play spoiler. That's kind of an X factor in this one. Caleb Williams versus DTR is going to be a fascinating quarterback matchup to watch as well because Caleb Williams has been putting up awesome numbers all year. That Lincoln Riley offense really fits him. Obviously, being recruited to it back in Oklahoma, but I'm just really concerned about UCLA's ability to keep up if they give up a few scores. Because for all the talk about USC's defense, UCLA's defense has really slipped off as of late as well. We saw it last week against Arizona. We've seen it, in the big games that UCLA has played as well. Talk about their loss at Oregon, their loss to Arizona. They gave up a lot of points in a couple other conference games as well. If they go down early, I'm really struggle with a team built so much on the ground game. If they can keep up, if they can keep those big chunk plays up, DTR can throw the football absolutely, but so much of their success is predicated on getting a lot of yards on the ground and taking what they want on the ground. If they fall behind early and they can't do that, I'm really concerned. So I'll take USC to cover that small spread and win this game in a really close, exciting one.
Yeah, no, all eyes obviously on USC for the Pac-12. We thought maybe preseason Mitch and I are pretty high on Utah, thinking that they would be the team, and then through the season kind of flirted with Oregon, UCLA, and now it's the Southern California Trojans or it's nobody. Look up, you see a Lincoln Riley team, top 3 offense and scoring, defense that's kind of barely holding it together. They're running through a conference that they don't play any defense in that whole conference. They're fighting for a playoff spot. Stop me if you heard this one before, right? This is just kind of same old, same old. Great job to what they've been able to do out there, especially in year one. I think that they've more than exceeded our expectations for them. And the fact that they're in this position is really cool. I think they got a real opportunity to build some resume here. They got obviously UCLA, a very good team this week, and then they get Notre Dame next week to close out the season. I think that would be a really great way for them to kind of build that resume, hop into one of those playoff spots if they could do it. The thing that concerns me is 2 of their last 3 have been 1-score wins. The other one was Colorado. That's not exactly I don't know if that counts as a game technically. And they're playing offenses they're playing an offense this week that is much better than what you got out there at Arizona and Cal, which are the 2 teams they beat by 1 score.
Mm-hmm.
Also, to that point, I think the fact that UCLA is such a run-based team is going to force USC to execute to make the most out of their opportunities. I don't think it's going to be as back and forth. I think if you're UCLA, you're going to come in here thinking we're going to run the football, we're going to score points on every single drive we get, and we're not going to give them that many opportunities. They would love nothing more than to knock their crosstown rivals out of the playoff and ruin their season. Good for USC for exceeding the preseason expectations. I think they get bit this week. I'm going to pick UCLA to win this one. I'm going to take them plus 2.5, obviously.
I do think it's a very dangerous spot for a team on the road. I know it's a local game, but still on the road in your biggest rival's house, and they've got truly nothing to lose. That makes me really nervous for a team that hasn't even played a full season together, right? I mean, they've been the transfer portal warriors. This is a Lincoln Riley coach team where, listen, for all the regular season success he's had, when it comes to the biggest games of Lincoln Riley's career, he's a little bit mortal. So I do wonder if this turns against USC early. I will say if UCLA can jump on USC early and take some of that energy out of the Trojans' sidelines, I really like the Bruins to win by multiple scores. I just think that when I survey both teams on kind of an equal playing field, they both score a lot of points. They both don't play a lot of defense. They don't really get a lot of pass rush. To me, USC's offensive line is one of the best in the country. I think that may be the difference maker as far as running the ball and allowing Caleb Williams some time to throw downfield. So give me USC with a late field goal to win this rivalry game and then hope and pray, right? I mean, you should, if you run the table, you should get in as the Pac-12 champion with a Michigan loss or with an Ohio State loss, whichever team loses the big game.
And that's why I think, the loser of that big game needs to really worry about USC in particular, because
Sure.
that's going to be a solid resume all of a sudden with wins
Mhm.
over UCLA, Notre Dame, and Oregon in the final 3 weeks of the season. If that's what it comes down to, that is a solid, solid resume that's going to be almost impossible to keep out.
Yeah, I think they're probably sitting on number 5 going into that conference championship game if they win these next two, just because they're giving them the chance to win that game and hop in.
Gracious, how